The 1970s. After the Vietnam War, the American economy was in a recession, and there were 8 million people who were unemployed because of the war and government spending on social programs. This was also known as stagflation. Stagflation included unemployment and an increase in inflation. As a result, Nixon increased prices, which led into an energy crisis. We depended a lot on foreign oil, so the energy crisis increased when many Arab countries cut off their oil shipments to the U.S. because of their support of Israel, who the Arabs went to war with in 1973. This caused Americans to think about alternate energy options. They started to realize all the chemicals and pollution that was being let into the air each day. Earth Day and other programs were created to raise awareness of environmental problems. The Environmental Protection Agency was a federal agency with power to enforce environmental laws such as the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and the Endangered Species Act. Not only did species become endangered, but Nixon did too, when he started giving his White House staff more authority than the Senate, and when he kept important information from the public and Congress. He even made an enemies list to ruin his critics' reputations to ensure his re-election. He continued to build up more secrets by giving the CIA and FBI the power to do anything to stop leaks and to do illegal actions. This campaign was known as Watergate because 5 men were caught carrying wire-taped equipment and other spying devices into the Watergate offices of the Democratic National Committee. The puzzle was solved, and it was soon discovered that the men had connections with the White House and were being paid by Nixon. Because Nixon didn't want to deal with impeachment, he resigned himself, and then Gerald Ford came into the picture. Soon after, he lost popularity for giving Nixon a full pardon and later offering partial amnesty to Vietnam draft evaders through a series of steps. As Gerald Ford lost popularity, moon rings, lava lamps, Rubik's Cubes, smiley face stickers, and pet rocks gained popularity. Americans were also drawn to bell-bottom pants, hip huggers, colorful patches, micro miniskirts, platform shoes, and clogs. Not only was the floppy disk a big hit, but the VCR was too. As new trends went up, birth rates went down, but divorce rates sadly increased, causing more the desire to move. Many Americans migrated from the north and east to the Sunbelt states of the south and west. Even immigrants from Asia and Latin America migrated to the U.S. Because the MRI was created in other medicines, Americans were living longer in the 1970s, but lives are dying faster from the abortion until Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court case overturned a state law limiting a women's access to abortion. Women in the 1970s also lost their fight for the Equal Rights Amendment. On the other hand, Jimmy Carter won the fight for president in 1976, who believed in protecting human rights. Also, he announced an unconditional pardon for most Vietnam-era draft evaders, meaning he didn't set any steps for them to come back into the U.S. Carter caused Cold War tensions when he supported Panama's right to control the Canal Zone. After a lot of debate, the Panama Canal treaties were ratified. It granted Panama control over canal operations by the year 2000, while protecting U.S. security interests. A year later, when Cold War tensions seemed to be at peace, the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. Carter kept giving warnings until he warned that the Soviet military action in the Persian Gulf would provoke a military response by the U.S. Cold War tensions, inflation, unemployment, and other issues caused Carter's popularity to drop. But out of all these issues, the Iran hostage crisis caused it the most. Early in the 1950s, the U.S. helped the Shah gain power again in Iran, after followers of a militant Islamic leader, Khomeini, forced the Shah to leave the country. Carter allowed them into the U.S. for medical treatment. 53 American hostages were seized at the U.S. embassy in Iran's capital, when the U.S. tried to force the Shah's return back into Iran. 444 days later, in 1981, the hostages were set free. From Nixon to the first Earth Day, to Ford, to mood rings, to Carter, to the Iran hostage crisis, the 70s brought growth and strength to America.